The air in the room is still and heavy with the scent of old paper and dry wood, a comforting smell that reminds you of time passing slowly and without urgency, settling like dust on the shelves that line the walls from floor to ceiling. You are standing in the quietest corner of an old archive in a small town in New England, where the history is not written in battles, but in the slow growth of trees and the laying of stone walls. There is a table in the center of the room, crafted from oak that has darkened over a century of silent existence, and on this table lies a map that has been waiting for you. A map that leads not to danger or excitement, but to a place of profound stillness and forgotten things. The edges of the paper are soft and frayed, feeling like velvet against your fingertips as you trace the faded ink lines that wander across the surface like slow rivers seeking the sea. You can see the faint sketch of a tree line and a stone wall, drawn with a hand that moved with patience and precision, documenting a landscape that has likely not changed in many years. Your eyes follow the path marked on the map, a dotted line that suggests a leisurely walk rather than a rush, moving from the edge of a garden that no longer blooms through a forest where the trees stand tall and silent, guardians of the quiet earth. You decide to follow this path in your mind, stepping out of the room and into the imaginary outdoors, where the light is soft and golden, filtering through the leaves of ancient maples and oaks. The ground beneath your feet is cushioned by layers of fallen leaves, some brown and brittle, others soft and damp, creating a mosaic of earth tones that stretches as far as the eye can see. You begin to walk slowly, feeling the gentle resistance of the air against your skin, hearing nothing but the rhythmic crunch of your boots on the soil and the distant, almost imperceptible sound of a breeze moving through the upper branches. The map in your hand feels light, a guide to nowhere in particular, just a destination of peace. You pass by an old stone wall, the rocks covered in thick green moss that feels cool to the touch, each stone placed by hands long ago that worked with a steady rhythm, lifting and setting, until a boundary was made not to keep things out, but to define a space of quiet ownership. You pause to look at the moss, noticing how it grows in tiny, intricate forests of its own, miniature landscapes that exist in complete silence, undisturbed by the world around them. Continuing on the path, the trees become denser, their trunks thick and rough with bark that tells the story of decades of winters and summers, of slow growth rings expanding millimeter by millimeter in the dark heart of the wood. The sunlight here is dappled, falling in patches on the forest floor, illuminating a fern here, a patch of clover there, highlighting the simple beauty of things that simply exist. You breathe in the cool air, filling your lungs with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, a smell that is ancient and grounding, pulling you deeper into a state of relaxation. The path begins to curve gently to the left, following the natural contour of the land, avoiding steep climbs or sharp descents, preferring instead a level and easy route that requires no effort, only a willingness to keep moving forward at a slow, steady pace. You can see a small stream ahead, the water moving so slowly it barely seems to flow, slipping over smooth gray stones with a sound that is more of a whisper than a splash, a continuous low-frequency hum that blends with the silence of the woods. You stop by the stream and look down into the water, watching the way it distorts the pebbles on the bottom, making them dance in slow motion, shifting their shapes in the gentle current. The map indicates that you should cross this stream, but there is no bridge, only a series of large, flat stepping stones that offer a dry path across. You step onto the first stone, feeling its stability, then the second and the third, moving with a deliberate slowness that matches the rhythm of the water. On the other side, the forest opens up slightly, revealing an old orchard that has been abandoned for generations, the apple trees gnarled and twisted into shapes that look like sculptures, their branches reaching out towards the sky in a silent stretch. The grass here is tall and golden, swaying gently in the breeze, creating a soft rustling sound that is hypnotic and soothing, like the sound of distant ocean waves or the steady static of white noise. You walk through the tall grass, feeling it brush against your legs, a soft, tactile sensation that grounds you in the moment. The map shows an X mark near the center of this orchard, not a sharp or bold mark, but a small, carefully drawn cross near the base of the largest tree. You approach this tree, an ancient apple tree with a trunk so wide it would take two people to embrace it, its bark gray and silver, peeling in places to reveal the smooth wood beneath. You sit down at the base of the tree, the ground firm and supportive, and you lean your back against the trunk, feeling the solid strength of the wood supporting your spine. You are not in a hurry to dig. You are not in a hurry to find whatever is hidden here, because the act of sitting here in the quiet orchard is a treasure in itself. You take a small garden trowel from your bag, the metal cool and smooth, and you begin to scrape away the top layer of soil, the earth parting easily, revealing dark, rich dirt that smells of roots and rain. You dig slowly, rhythmically, scraping and lifting, the sound of the metal against the dirt, a monotonous, repetitive scratch that echoes softly in the stillness. There is no urgency, no frantic energy, just the slow and steady removal of earth, inch by inch, minute by minute. After a long time, or perhaps a short time, for time has lost its meaning here, your trowel hits something solid, not with a loud clang, but with a dull thud. You brush away the loose dirt with your gloved hand, revealing the top of a small wooden box, the wood dark and preserved by the soil, the grain visible and smooth. You carefully clear the dirt from around the edges of the box, taking your time to ensure that every grain of soil is removed before you attempt to lift it. The box is small, perhaps the size of a book, and it feels heavy and dense as you lift it from the hole and place it on your lap. You brush the remaining dirt from the lid, revealing a simple brass latch that has tarnished to a dull brown. You pause for a moment, listening to the wind in the grass, the silence of the orchard, the beating of your own calm heart. You unlatch the box, the mechanism moving with a stiff but smooth resistance, and you open the lid. Inside, there is no gold, no jewels, no flashing diamonds. Instead, there is a collection of smooth river stones, each one perfectly round and polished by centuries of water, cool and heavy in your hand.
There is a small glass bottle filled with sand from a beach that no longer exists, the grains shifting slowly as you tilt the bottle. There is a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, the paper yellowed and soft, filled with words of daily life, of weather and crops and simple quiet days. You pick up one of the stones, feeling its weight, its smoothness, its absolute stillness. This is the treasure, the discovery of things that have endured, things that are solid and real and quiet. You place the stone back in the box and close the lid, feeling a sense of completion, a sense of deep, abiding peace. You decide to leave the box here, reburying it for the earth to hold, for the silence to keep. You place the box back into the hole, covering it with the loose soil, patting it down firmly, returning the ground to its natural state. You stand up, brushing the dirt from your knees, and look around the orchard one last time. The sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long, lazy shadows across the grass, painting the world in shades of amber and gold. You turn and begin the walk back, retracing your steps through the tall grass, across the stepping stones of the quiet stream, through the dense forest of pine and oak, past the moss-covered stone wall, and finally back to the edge of the imaginary woods. The journey back is even slower than the journey there, your body moving with a languid heaviness, your mind empty of thoughts, filled only with the memory of the quiet orchard and the silent box. You return to the room with the table and the map, the air still heavy and scented with old paper. You roll up the map, the paper crinkling softly, and place it back on the shelf, leaving it for the next person who needs to find a moment of silence. You walk out of the room, closing the door behind you with a soft click, carrying the quiet of the orchard with you, a heavy, warm blanket of peace that wraps around your shoulders and pulls you down, 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 into a deep and dreamless sleep. You are standing once again in the archive room, the light remaining unchanged as if time has stopped completely within these four walls. The dust motes dance in the shafts of light that cut through the stagnant air, moving in slow circular patterns that seem to have no beginning and no end. You feel drawn to the oak table again, where another drawer waits to be opened, a drawer that sits flush against the frame of the cabinet, its brass handle polished by the touch of countless hands over the last century. You reach out your hand, your movements heavy and deliberate, and your fingers curl around the cool metal of the handle. You pull gently, and the drawer slides open with a low sliding sound of wood against wood, a sound that speaks of craftsmanship and age. Inside this drawer, there is no map this time, but a heavy iron key and a small folded piece of parchment that smells of lavender and old ink. You unfold the parchment slowly, taking care not to crease the fragile paper, and you see a drawing of a small wooden dock by the edge of a wide, slow-moving river. The instructions are simple, written in a flowing script that loops and curls with an elegant laziness, telling you to find the river and follow the current to the place where the water slows down even more. You take the key, feeling its cold weight in your palm, its surface pitted and worn, a tactile reminder of the passage of time. You place the key in your pocket and turn to leave the archive once more, stepping out of the room and back into the world of your imagination, where the air is warm and thick with the humidity of a late summer afternoon. The path to the river is wide and flat, paved with packed dirt that has been walked upon for generations, smooth and hard beneath your boots. On either side of the path, tall reeds grow in dense clusters, their green stalks swaying gently in a breeze you cannot feel but can see in the rippling movement of the plants. The sound of the reeds brushing against each other is a dry, whispering sound, a continuous hush-hush sound that calms your mind and slows your breathing. You walk for what feels like hours, but your legs do not grow tired, for in this place effort does not exist, only motion. The smell of the river begins to reach you, a scent of wet stones, mud, and flowing water, a fresh and organic smell that clears your thoughts. You reach the bank of the river, where the water is wide and brown, moving with a deceptive slowness, a powerful force that flows silently toward the sea. There is a small wooden dock here, the wood gray and weathered, bleached by the sun and smoothed by the rain. Tied to the dock is a small wooden rowboat, painted a faded shade of blue that is peeling to reveal the white wood beneath. You step onto the dock, the wood creaking softly under your weight, a comforting sound of stability. You untie the thick hemp rope that holds the boat, the fibers rough against your skin, and you toss the rope into the bottom of the boat, where it coils like a sleeping snake. You step into the boat, feeling it rock gently beneath you, a swaying motion that is instantly soothing, rocking you back and forth, back and forth. You sit on the wooden bench in the center of the boat, but you do not pick up the oars. Instead, you let the boat drift, caught by the gentle current that pulls it away from the dock and out into the center of the river. The boat turns slowly, spinning in a lazy circle before straightening out and following the flow of the water. You close your eyes and feel the sun on your face, a warm and heavy blanket of light that relaxes the muscles in your forehead, your jaw, your shoulders. The only sound is the water lapping against the hull of the boat, a rhythmic slap, slap, slap sound that matches the beating of your heart.
You drift past lines of trees that hang over the water, their branches dipping into the river, creating small ripples that spread out and disappear. You see a dragonfly, bright blue and iridescent, hovering near the boat for a moment before darting away, its wings a blur of motion in the stillness. The boat moves seamlessly downstream, carrying you without any effort on your part, simply allowing you to exist in this state of suspension, floating between the sky and the water. The river begins to widen, the current slowing even more, until the water looks like a sheet of glass, reflecting the clouds above so perfectly that you cannot tell where the sky ends and the water begins. Ahead, on the right bank, you see a small cottage nestled among a grove of weeping willows, their long branches creating a green curtain around the house. There is a small private dock here, similar to the one you left, and the current seems to guide your boat gently toward it, as if the water knows exactly where you need to go. The boat bumps softly against the wooden pilings of the dock, a dull thud that signals your arrival.
You reach out and grab the piling, steadying the boat, and you climb out onto the dock, moving with the same slow, dreamlike quality as before. You walk down the length of the dock and onto the grassy bank, the ground soft and yielding under your feet. The cottage is small, built of stone and timber, with a roof covered in thick moss. There is a heavy wooden door with a large iron lock, and you reach into your pocket to retrieve the key you found in the archive. You insert the key into the lock, the metal scraping softly against metal, and you turn it. The mechanism clicks open with a satisfying sound of finality. You push the door open and step inside. The air in the cottage is cool and smells of dried herbs and beeswax. The room is dimly lit by the sunlight filtering through the willow branches outside the windows, casting patterned shadows on the floorboards. In the center of the room stands a large wooden desk covered in stacks of old books and jars filled with seeds. You walk over to the desk, your footsteps silent on the woven rug that covers the floor. You are looking for something specific, though you do not know what it is until you see it. There, resting on a velvet cushion, is a large, leather-bound book with no title on the cover. You sit in the heavy wooden chair behind the desk, the wood groaning softly as you settle in. You open the book, the leather creaking, and you see that it is not a book of words, but a book of pressed flowers. Each page contains a different flower, carefully flattened and dried, its colors faded but still visible, preserved in time. You turn the pages slowly, one by one. There is a violet, its petals paper-thin and delicate. There is a rose, pressed flat, its thorns still sharp-looking but harmless now. There is a fern, its complex structure captured perfectly against the white paper. You spend a long time looking at these flowers, tracing their shapes with your eyes, imagining the hands that picked them, the sunny days when they were fresh and blooming. It is a boring task, a repetitive task, turning page after page of dried plants, but it is deeply satisfying. It connects you to the slow cycle of nature, to the quiet preservation of beauty. As you reach the end of the book, you find a small envelope tucked into the back cover. You open it and slide out a single smooth piece of sea glass, frosted white and shaped like a key. You hold the glass up to the dim light, watching how it glows, a piece of trash turned into treasure by the relentless, patient action of the sea. You place the sea glass back in the envelope and you close the book. You feel a wave of heaviness wash over you, a comfortable exhaustion that starts in your feet and moves up your legs, your torso, your arms. You lean back in the chair, resting your head against the high back, and you listen to the silence of the cottage, a silence that is protected by the stone walls and the willow trees. The river flows outside, the earth turns slowly, and you are here, safe and still, anchoring yourself in the quiet moment. There is nothing else to do. Nowhere else to be. You simply breathe in the scent of beeswax and herbs. You let your eyelids droop, heavy and relaxed. You are drifting again, not on a river this time, but on the edge of unconsciousness. The image of the pressed flowers lingers in your mind, a visual lullaby of stillness and preservation.
You are part of this quiet world now, a silent observer in the archive of forgotten things. You rise slowly from the heavy wooden chair in the cottage, your movements stiff and languid, as if you were moving through water, the air around you thick with the silence of the afternoon. You place the leather book back on the desk, aligning it perfectly with the edge of the wood, a small act of order that feels satisfying and complete. You walk to the door, stepping out into the sunlight, which is now turned to the deeper gold of early evening, the shadows of the willow trees stretching long and thin across the grass. You walk down the dock to the boat, stepping in and untying the rope, pushing off gently from the wooden piling. The return journey is even more peaceful than the arrival, the boat seeming to know the way back without guidance, moving against the gentle current with a steady and rhythmic bobbing motion. You watch the trees pass by in reverse, the green canopy blurring into a continuous ribbon of color, the sky above turning a soft shade of violet as the day begins to fade. You reach the original dock, tying the boat securely, the rope rough in your hands, the knot tight and sure. You walk back along the path through the reeds, the sound of their rustling now a whisper of good night, the air cooling on your skin. You return to the archive room, the door clicking shut behind you, sealing out the world and its noise. The room is exactly as you left it, a sanctuary of stillness and dust. You walk to the far wall where a tall cabinet stands, its wood dark and polished, smelling of lemon oil and age. You open the glass door, the hinges making a faint, high-pitched sound that is quickly swallowed by the silence. On the middle shelf, there sits a small brass telescope, its metal tarnished to a warm, dull brown. You pick it up, feeling its cold weight, and you notice a small tag tied to it with a piece of twine. The tag reads simply, "The Watcher's Tower," in faded black ink. You hold the telescope and close your eyes, letting the darkness of the room transport you once again. When you open your eyes, you are standing on a gravel path at the edge of a cliff, the air filled with the salty tang of the ocean and the sound of waves crashing rhythmically against the rocks far below. The sky is gray and overcast, a blanket of soft clouds that diffuses the light, making everything look soft and dreamlike. You begin to walk along the path, the gravel crunching softly under your boots, a steady rhythmic sound that marks your progress. To your left is the endless gray ocean, its surface heaving slowly with the tide, whitecaps appearing and disappearing in a hypnotic dance. To your right are rolling dunes covered in tall, coarse grass that bends in the wind, whispering secrets to the sand. The wind here is constant but gentle, a cool pressure against your face that feels refreshing and clean. You walk for a long time, watching the horizon where the gray sea meets the gray sky, a seamless line of infinity. In the distance, a lighthouse begins to emerge from the mist, a tall white column standing silent and strong against the elements. It is not a modern lighthouse with flashing electric lights, but an old structure of stone and brick, painted white but weathered by years of salt and storm. You approach the lighthouse, the path winding up the grassy slope towards the heavy iron door at its base. There is no one here, only the wind and the sea and the stone. You reach the door and find it unlocked, the heavy handle turning easily in your grip. You step inside, leaving the sound of the wind behind, entering a circular room with a stone floor and cool, damp air. In the center of the room is a spiral staircase made of iron, winding upwards into the darkness above. You place your hand on the cold metal railing and begin to climb. Step, step, step. The sound of your boots on the metal stairs echoes softly in the tower, a metallic ringing that fades quickly into silence. You climb slowly, counting the steps in your mind, 1, 2, 3, 4. The climb is monotonous and repetitive, a physical meditation that clears your mind of all thoughts.
You climb past small windows that offer glimpses of the gray sea below, each view slightly higher, slightly wider than the last. You climb until your legs feel heavy and warm, a pleasant fatigue that tells you that you are doing work, that you are moving upward. Finally, you reach the top, emerging into the lantern room.
The room is surrounded by glass, offering a panoramic view of the ocean. But the glass is old and wavy, distorting the world outside into a watercolor painting of grays and blues. In the center of the room is the great lens, a massive structure of crystal prisms and brass, silent and dark during the day. You walk around the lens, admiring the precision of the glass, the way it catches the gray light and breaks it into tiny rainbows. On a small wooden workbench near the window, there is a soft cloth and a small bottle of oil. You know what you must do. You pick up the cloth and apply a small amount of oil. The smell is sharp and clean. You begin to polish the brass fittings of the lens, moving the cloth in small, slow circles. Rub, rub, rub. The motion is soothing, the repetition calming. You watch as the dull brass begins to shine, revealing a deep golden glow beneath the tarnish. You work your way around the entire lens, polishing every screw, every frame, every handle. There is no rush, no deadline, only the task at hand. The sound of the cloth against the metal is a soft hiss, a white noise that blends with the muffled sound of the wind outside. You spend hours here, or perhaps minutes, polishing the brass until it gleams in the dim light. When you are finished, you set the cloth down and look at your work, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. You notice a small wooden compartment built into the bench, its door slightly ajar. You pull it open and find a collection of sea charts, rolled up and tied with string. You carefully untie one and spread it out on the bench. It is a map of the stars, not the land, with constellations drawn in white ink on dark blue paper. You trace the lines of the stars with your finger, following the connections between the points of light, imagining the sailors who used these maps to find their way home. Beneath the maps, at the bottom of the compartment, is a small object wrapped in canvas. You unfold the canvas to reveal a piece of driftwood, smoothed by the ocean into the shape of a bird. It is light and warm in your hand, the wood grains swirling like the currents of the sea. You hold the driftwood, feeling its texture, its history, its journey from tree to ocean to shore to tower. This is the treasure of the lighthouse, a simple piece of nature sculpted by time and water. You wrap the driftwood back in the canvas and place it in your pocket. You take one last look at the gray ocean through the wavy glass, watching a single ship moving slowly across the horizon, a tiny speck in the vastness of the water. You turn and begin the descent, back down the iron spiral staircase. Step, step, step. The journey down is easier, gravity aiding your movements, your hand sliding smoothly along the railing. You reach the bottom and step out the iron door, back into the cool wind and the salt air. You walk back along the gravel path, the lighthouse receding into the mist behind you, a silent sentinel watching over the sea. You retrace your steps past the dunes, past the heaving ocean, the sound of the waves providing a steady rhythm for your walk. The light is fading now, the gray sky turning to a deep charcoal, the world settling in for the night. You find yourself back in the archive room, the brass telescope still in your hand. You place it back on the shelf in the cabinet and close the glass door, the latch clicking softly. You stand in the center of the room, feeling the weight of the driftwood in your pocket, a reminder of the quiet tower and the endless sea. You feel heavy, your eyelids drooping, your body ready for rest. But there is one more place to go, one more map to follow. You turn to the final wall of the archive, where a large tapestry hangs depicting a sprawling meadow under a moonlit sky. You reach out and touch the fabric, feeling the rough weave of the wool, and as you do, the walls of the archive seem to dissolve, melting away into the darkness. You are now standing at the edge of that meadow, the grass silver in the moonlight, the air cool and crisp. Fireflies blink slowly in the tall grass, tiny points of yellow light that drift lazily on the breeze. You begin to walk into the meadow, the grass brushing against your knees, soft and wet with dew. There is a path here, barely visible, a thin line of flattened grass that leads towards a distant line of trees. You walk slowly, watching the fireflies, listening to the chorus of crickets that fills the night air, a steady rhythmic chirping that sounds like the heartbeat of the earth. You reach the trees, a grove of ancient birches with white bark that glows in the moonlight. In the center of the grove is a small clearing, and in the clearing is a stone circle, a fire pit that has been cold for 100 years. You sit on one of the stones surrounding the pit, the rock cool and solid beneath you. You look up at the sky, seeing the same stars that were on the map in the lighthouse, connecting the dots in your mind. You feel a profound sense of connection, a feeling that you are exactly where you are meant to be. You take the driftwood from your pocket and place it in the center of the fire pit, not to burn, but to rest. It belongs here, with the stones and the trees and the stars. You lie back in the grass, looking up at the moon, feeling the earth holding you, supporting you. The chirping of the crickets becomes a lullaby, the blinking of the fireflies a hypnotic show. Your eyes grow heavy, so heavy that you can no longer keep them open. You let them close, and you drift, floating on the sea of grass, sinking deeper and deeper into the quiet, into the dark, into the sleep that has been waiting for you all along. The transition is seamless, like a cloud passing over the moon, and you find yourself no longer in the grass, but seated in a high-backed armchair upholstered in crushed red velvet, the fabric soft and warm against your skin. The train is moving, but very slowly, a gentle, rhythmic rocking motion that sways you side to side, a cradle of wood and steel moving through a silent world. You look out the window, framed by heavy curtains with gold tassels, and you see that the world outside has turned to white, a landscape of deep, pristine snow that stretches to the horizon. It is snowing heavily, great soft flakes drifting down from a slate-gray sky, covering the earth with a thick, sound-dampening blanket. The train moves through a forest of pine trees, their branches bowed low under the weight of the snow, creating a tunnel of white and green that you pass through with a hushed whisper of metal on iron rails. There is no sound of an engine, only the rhythmic click-clack, click-clack of the wheels, a steady metronome that measures the passing of time in beats of comfort and safety. You are the only passenger in this car, perhaps on the entire train, and this solitude is not lonely, but luxurious, a private journey through a frozen world. On the small table in front of you, secured by a brass rim, is set a porcelain cup of tea, steam radiating from it in lazy spirals that dance in the dim light. You pick up the cup, feeling the warmth radiating into your palms, and you take a sip, the taste of chamomile and honey coating your throat, warming you from the inside out. You set the cup down and decide to explore, standing up on legs that feel heavy and relaxed, moving with the sway of the train.
You walk down the aisle, your feet sinking into the thick, patterned carpet that runs the length of the car, muffling your footsteps completely. You pass rows of empty seats, each one inviting and plush, until you reach the door at the end of the carriage. You push the heavy wood and glass door open, stepping into the vestibule where the air is cooler and smells faintly of coal smoke and cold iron. You open the next door and enter the observation car, a room with walls made almost entirely of glass, offering an uninterrupted view of the winter wonderland outside. At the very end of the car, there is a curved bench facing the rear window, watching the tracks recede into the distance. You sit there, watching the two steel rails emerging from beneath the train, parallel lines that stretch back into the white infinity, instantly covered by the falling snow. It is mesmerizing to watch the tracks disappear, a visual reminder that the past is gone and only the present moment exists, rolling forward at a slow, steady pace. On the bench next to you, someone has left a small wooden puzzle box, intricate and inlaid with mother-of-pearl. You pick it up, the wood smooth and cool, and you turn it over in your hands, looking for the seam, the hidden latch that will open it. There is no rush to solve it. The feeling of the box in your hands is enough, the texture of the wood, the way the light catches the pearl inlay. You gently slide a panel to the right, then a small piece to the left, your fingers moving intuitively, guided by a sense of calm curiosity. With a soft click, the box opens. Inside, resting on a bed of blue velvet,
is a silver pocket watch on a long chain. You lift it out, the silver heavy and cold, and you press the catch to open the face. The watch has stopped, the hands frozen at a time that no longer matters, and the ticking has ceased, leaving only a beautiful silence. The face of the watch is not numbered with hours, but with words: rest, dream, drift, sleep. You run your thumb over the smooth glass of the watch face, tracing the words, internalizing their command. You place the watch in your vest pocket, the weight of it a grounding presence against your chest. You stand up and leave the observation car, walking back through the quiet train, the rhythmic swaying lulling you into a state of deep drowsiness. You return to your original seat, the red velvet welcoming you back, molding to the shape of your body. You look out the window again, the snow falling thicker now, blurring the trees into soft gray shapes, the world outside losing its definition, becoming a canvas of pure white silence. The click-clack of the wheels seems to be getting softer, slower, fading into the background of your consciousness. You lean your head back against the winged headrest, your neck supported, your shoulders dropping. The steam from the tea has stopped rising, the cup sitting still on the table. The golden light of the lamps seems to dim, turning to a soft amber, then a deep twilight blue. The train is taking you nowhere, and it is taking you everywhere, a journey without a destination, a travel through the landscape of sleep. You feel the heavy eyelids sliding shut, blocking out the white snow, the dark wood, the golden light. You are safe, you are warm, you are moving through the quiet. The rhythm of the train becomes the rhythm of your breath, in and out, slow and steady. You drift deeper into the upholstery, deeper into the warmth, deeper into the peace that you have found on this silent, snowy track. The world fades away completely, leaving only the sensation of floating, of being carried, of gentle, uninterrupted rest. The train comes to a final, imperceptible stop, the wheels ceasing their rotation with a sigh of steam that wraps around the carriage like a soft white cloud. You stand up from the velvet chair, feeling rested and heavy, and you walk to the door, which slides open silently to reveal a platform made of smooth, polished marble that glows faintly in the twilight. You step out onto the stone, the air cool and still, smelling of old stone and distant rain, and you walk across the empty platform towards a grand archway carved from gray granite. There are no ticket collectors, no crowds, no noise, just the sound of your own footsteps echoing softly in the vast space. You pass through the archway and find yourself not in a station, but in a library of immense proportions, a cathedral of books, with shelves that rise up into the shadows of the vaulted ceiling high above. The air here is dry and smells of parchment, leather bindings, and the dust of centuries, a comforting and studious scent that makes you want to whisper. You walk down a long aisle between the towering shelves, running your fingertips lightly over the spines of the books, feeling the rough texture of cloth, the smoothness of leather, the ridges of gold-embossed titles that have faded with time. The light comes from tall, narrow windows that let in beams of blue moonlight, illuminating floating dust motes that drift in the air like tiny stars. You are looking for something, though you are not sure what, guided only by the feeling of peace and the slow rhythm of your own breathing. You reach the center of the library, where a large spiral staircase made of wrought iron winds its way upward, its steps covered in a thick, dark carpet. You begin to climb, your hands sliding up the cold metal railing, round and round, ascending slowly into the upper reaches of the room. At the top of the stairs there is a small circular gallery with a single reading desk illuminated by a brass lamp with a green glass shade. You approach the desk, the floorboards creaking softly under your weight, a sound that emphasizes the silence rather than breaking it. On the desk sits a large circular globe, its surface sepia-toned and covered with the lines of ancient maps showing countries and oceans that have different names in this quiet world. You reach out and gently spin the globe, watching the continents blur into a swirl of beige and blue, the rotation slow and smooth on its axis. As the globe slows to a stop, you notice a small latch near the equator, barely visible against the map lines. You press the latch with your thumb, and the globe opens on a hidden hinge, revealing a hollow interior lined with red silk. Inside, resting on a bed of blue velvet, is a silver pocket watch on a long chain. You lift it out, the silver heavy and cold, and you press the catch to open the face. The watch has stopped, the hands frozen at a time that no longer matters, and the ticking has ceased, leaving only a beautiful silence. The face of the watch is not numbered with hours, but with words: rest, dream, drift, sleep. You run your thumb over the smooth glass of the watch face, tracing the words, internalizing their command. You place the watch in your vest pocket, the weight of it a grounding presence against your chest. You stand up and leave the observation car, walking back through the quiet train, the rhythmic swaying lulling you into a state of deep drowsiness. You return to your original seat, the red velvet welcoming you back, molding to the shape of your body. You look out the window again, the snow falling thicker now, blurring the trees into soft gray shapes, the world outside losing its definition, becoming a canvas of pure white silence. The click-clack of the wheels seems to be getting softer, slower, fading into the background of your consciousness. You lean your head back against the winged headrest, your neck supported, your shoulders dropping. The steam from the tea has stopped rising, the cup sitting still on the table. The golden light of the lamps seems to dim, turning to a soft amber, then a deep twilight blue. The train is taking you nowhere, and it is taking you everywhere, a journey without a destination, a travel through the landscape of sleep. You feel the heavy eyelids sliding shut, blocking out the white snow, the dark wood, the golden light. You are safe, you are warm, you are moving through the quiet. The rhythm of the train becomes the rhythm of your breath, in and out, slow and steady. You drift deeper into the upholstery, deeper into the warmth, deeper into the peace that you have found on this silent, snowy track. The world fades away completely, leaving only the sensation of floating, of being carried, of gentle, uninterrupted rest. The library fades away into the shadows, the smell of old paper replaced slowly by the heavy, sweet scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine, and you find yourself standing inside a magnificent glass greenhouse, a Victorian structure of iron and crystal that glows softly in the moonlight. The air is warm and humid, clinging gently to your skin like a soft blanket, relaxing your muscles instantly with its tropical embrace. Outside the glass walls, a gentle rain has begun to fall, the drops tapping against the panes with a rhythmic musical sound. Tap, 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 a lullaby of water and glass that surrounds you completely.
You begin to walk down the central aisle, the path beneath your feet paved with old red bricks that are worn smooth in the center from years of slow, careful footsteps. On either side of you, lush green plants rise up from terracotta pots, their leaves broad and waxy, glistening with moisture in the dim light. There are ferns that unfurl like sleeping fiddleheads, orchids that hang from the ceiling in baskets of moss, and vines that twist and climb up the iron pillars, reaching for the roof. You walk slowly, your hand brushing against the soft leaves, feeling the cool texture of the plants, connecting with the silent life that surrounds you. The sound of the rain intensifies slightly, a steady drumming that washes away all other thoughts, leaving only the present moment and the green stillness. You stop in front of an ancient potting bench made of weathered teak, its surface stained with the soil of 1,000 repottings. On the bench sits a row of small clay pots, empty and waiting, but one pot at the end is overturned. You reach out and lift the pot, the clay rough and cool against your fingers. Underneath the pot, hidden in the recess of the wood, is a small rusted metal tin, the kind used to hold mints or tobacco in a forgotten time. You pick up the tin, the metal warm from the humid air, and you pry the lid open with a soft pop. Inside, resting on a bed of dry moss, is a piece of golden amber, polished and smooth, warm to the touch. You hold the amber up to the moonlight filtering through the rain-streaked glass, and you see a tiny ancient insect trapped inside, preserved forever in a golden moment of silence. This is the treasure of the greenhouse, a drop of time caught in resin, a memory of a sunlit day held safe through the centuries. You place the amber back in the tin and close the lid, placing it back on the bench under the overturned pot, leaving it for the next quiet wanderer. You turn and see an old wrought iron bench at the end of the aisle, cushioned with faded floral fabric. You walk towards it, the sound of your steps lost in the humidity, and you sit down, the metal of the bench cool and sturdy. You lean back, closing your eyes, listening to the rain drumming on the glass roof, a sound that wraps around you like a cocoon. The warmth of the greenhouse, the smell of the jasmine, the rhythm of the rain, all of it pulls you down, heavier and heavier. You feel your breathing synchronize with the tapping of the rain, slow and steady, deep and calm. You are a plant in this garden, rooted and still, drinking in the peace, growing slowly in the dark. The world outside is wet and cold, but here you are safe. Here you are warm. Here you are drifting into the deep, green, silent sleep that waits for you in the heart of the garden. The sound of the rain on the greenhouse roof begins to fade gently into the distance as the scene shifts around you once more, the humidity and warmth dissolving into a cooler, crisper air that smells of polished wood and machine oil. You find yourself standing on a narrow cobblestone street in an old, quiet city where it is always evening, the street lamps casting a warm, amber glow on the wet stones beneath your feet. You begin to walk down the street, your boots making a solid, rhythmic sound on the cobblestones, click-clack, click-clack, a sound that echoes softly against the brick buildings that line the road. The shop windows are dark and sleepy, filled with old books and dusty antiques, but there is one shop at the end of the lane that has a faint light burning in the window. Above the door swings a wooden sign shaped like a pocket watch, creaking slightly in the gentle breeze. You approach the shop, the door painted a deep glossy green, and you reach out to turn the heavy brass knob. The door opens with the chime of a small bell, a tinkling sound that announces your arrival to the silence. You step inside, and the door closes behind you, shutting out the street, the breeze, and the world. You are now standing in the center of an old clockmaker's workshop, a room filled from floor to ceiling with clocks of every shape and size. There are tall grandfather clocks standing like sentinels against the walls, their pendulums swinging back and forth with a deep, slow rhythm, tick-tock, tick-tock. There are cuckoo clocks carved from dark wood hanging on the walls, their weights suspended on long chains. There are mantel clocks made of marble and brass, sitting on shelves, ticking away with a faster, lighter sound, tick-tick-tick-tick. The air is thick with the sound of time, a cacophony of rhythms that somehow blend into a soothing, continuous white noise, a heartbeat of the room that matches your own. You walk slowly through the aisles of clocks, your hands clasped behind your back, observing the details of the craftsmanship. You stop to admire a grandfather clock made of mahogany, the wood polished to a mirror-like shine, reflecting the dim light of the overhead lamps.
You watch the pendulum swing left, right, a motion that is perfectly consistent, perfectly calm, never rushing, never lagging, just existing in the moment. You move deeper into the shop, past a counter covered with tools, tiny screwdrivers, tweezers, magnifying glasses, and spools of brass wire. The air of the oil used to lubricate the gears is stronger here, a clean metallic scent that feels grounding and real. You see a heavy velvet curtain at the back of the shop, partially drawn back to reveal a smaller, more private workspace. Here there is a large workbench made of thick oak, scarred and stained by centuries of work. On the bench sits a single disassembled clock, its brass gears and springs laid out in a precise pattern on a piece of white felt. You sit down on the high wooden stool in front of the bench, feeling the wood support you. You look at the gears, marveling at their complexity, the tiny teeth that mesh together to measure the passing of seconds. You pick up a pair of tweezers and gently lift a small gear, holding it up to the light. It is no bigger than a fingernail, yet it is essential to the whole mechanism. You place it back down on the felt, fitting it perfectly into its designated spot. As you do, you notice a small, loose floorboard beneath the workbench. You lean down and pry it up gently with your fingers. Underneath, in the dusty space between the joists, is a small wooden box made of cedar, smelling faintly of the forest. You lift the box out and place it on the workbench. The lid is carved with a pattern of stars and moons. You open the box slowly, the hinges moving stiffly. Inside, resting on a cushion of blue silk, is a piece of silver key, intricate and beautiful, with a handle shaped like an owl. This is the treasure of the clockmaker, the key to a time that has not yet come, or perhaps a time that has already passed. You run your thumb over the silver owl, feeling the cool metal, the tiny details of the feathers. You place the key back in the box and close the lid, returning the box to its hiding place under the floorboard, pressing the wood back down until it is flush. You sit back on the stool, resting your elbows on the workbench, and you simply listen.
You listen to the ticking of the thousands of clocks in the other room, a symphony of seconds that surrounds you. The sound is hypnotic, a steady river of time that flows over you, washing away your stress, washing away your thoughts. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Your eyelids begin to feel heavy, as if tiny weights have been placed upon them. The rhythm of the clocks begins to slow down in your mind, the spaces between the ticks becoming longer, deeper, more silent. You are safe here, surrounded by the steady pulse of the universe. The room seems to dim, the light fading to a soft gray, then a deep charcoal. You rest your head on your arms on the workbench, the wood cool against your forehead. The ticking becomes a lullaby, a soft, rhythmic patter like rain, like a heartbeat, like footsteps fading away. You are drifting now, floating on the sound of time, moving away from the waking world, sinking deeper into the comfort of the workshop, deeper into the silence, deeper into the long, slow, uninterrupted sleep that you have been seeking. The rhythmic ticking of the clocks fades slowly behind you as you step out of the green door and back into the cool night air, the street now empty and silent, save for the distant sound of wind moving through the eaves of the buildings. You continue walking down the cobblestone lane, your boots moving with a heavy, relaxed rhythm, passing closed storefronts and darkened windows until you reach a small, unassuming building made of rough gray stone at the very edge of the town. There is no sign above the door, only a faint smell of wet earth and wood smoke drifting from the chimney, a scent that triggers a deep, primitive memory of warmth and shelter. You push open the heavy oak door, which swings inward on silent iron hinges, and you step into a large, dimly lit pottery studio that feels like entering a cave of comfort.
The air here is warm and dry, heated by a large brick kiln that sits in the far corner, radiating a gentle, steady heat that wraps around you like a heavy wool blanket, instantly relaxing the tension in your shoulders. The room is filled with long wooden tables covered in canvas, and shelves that line the walls from floor to ceiling are packed with rows of unglazed bowls, vases, and cups, their surfaces a pale, dusty gray in the moonlight that streams through the high, narrow windows. You walk slowly down the center of the room, your footsteps muffled by the layer of fine clay dust that covers the floorboards like a soft carpet. You run your hand along the edge of a workbench, feeling the texture of the dry clay, a fine chalky powder that coats your fingertips and connects you to the earth. You stop to look at a potter's wheel sitting silent in the corner, a heavy stone flywheel at its base, and a wooden seat polished smooth by years of use. You can imagine the rhythmic thumping of the kick wheel, the wet slap of clay, the spinning motion that creates form out of nothing. But tonight, everything is absolutely still, waiting in the quiet dark. You walk towards the back of the room, where the shelves are stacked high with wooden molds and carving tools, their metal tips dull and resting. There is a sense of suspended time here, as if the potter just stepped out for a moment 100 years ago and never returned. You see a row of large clay jars on a lower shelf, each one sealed with a heavy cork stopper. You kneel down, your knees resting comfortably on the dusty floor, and you reach out to the third jar from the left, a heavy, round vessel with a rough, unpolished texture. You pull the cork, the dry sound echoing softly in the room like a whisper, and you tilt the jar to look inside. It is empty of water or wine, but at the very bottom there rests a small folded piece of soft leather. You reach in and pull it out, the leather worn and pliable, tied with a thin strip of rawhide. You untie the knot slowly, your fingers moving without haste, focusing entirely on the sensation of the leather against your skin. You unfold the pouch to reveal a small silver coin, ancient and worn smooth by many hands, with the faint image of a wheat stalk on one side. This is the treasure of the potter, a token of harvest and earth, hidden away in a vessel of clay for safekeeping. You hold the coin in your palm, feeling its coolness against your skin, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the room. You fold the leather back over the coin, tying the knot securely with a slow, deliberate motion, and place it back into the jar, replacing the cork with a firm twist that seals the silence inside. You stand up slowly, feeling the warmth of the kiln radiating against your back, relaxing the muscles in your spine, making your legs feel heavy and loose. You walk over to an old armchair in the corner of the room, covered in a dusty woven throw rug that smells of dried sage. You sit down, the chair creaking softly under your weight, and you settle into the cushions, feeling the dust motes dancing in the air around you, illuminated by the faint orange glow of the kiln. The smell of the clay is hypnotic, the scent of the earth itself, grounding and heavy and real. You watch the faint glow from the kiln, a steady, unblinking eye in the darkness that promises warmth and safety. The heat seeps into your bones, deeper and deeper, making your eyelids feel incredibly heavy. Your breathing slows as matching the stillness of the room, in and out, slow and deep. You are a vessel of clay yourself, sitting on the shelf, drying slowly, hardening, becoming still and silent. The world outside is forgotten, the noise and the rush are gone, leaving only the warmth, the dust, the silence, and the heavy, comforting weight of sleep pressing down on your eyes, closing them gently, sealing you into the quiet, warm, earthy dark. The warmth of the pottery studio stays with you as a gentle memory as you step out into the cool night, the air fresh and smelling faintly of dew and pine. You walk along a narrow dirt path that winds away from the town, the ground soft beneath your boots, lined on both sides by tall hedges of lavender that release a calming scent as you brush past them. The path leads you towards a small, solitary cottage made of white stone with a thatched roof that hangs low over the windows like a sleepy eyelid. You approach the wooden door, which is painted a soft, faded blue, and you lift the latch, the metal smooth and worn under your thumb. The door opens with a hushed creak, inviting you into a room that is filled with the softest textures imaginable.
You step inside, and the air is filled with the smell of raw wool, lanolin, and cedarwood, a cozy and organic scent that makes you feel instantly safe. The room is dimly lit by a few candles placed on shelves, their flames flickering gently, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls, which are hung with tapestries of green and gold. In the center of the room stands a large, ancient wooden loom, a masterpiece of craftsmanship made from dark walnut wood, polished by generations of hands. You walk towards it, your footsteps silent on the thick, hand-woven rugs that cover the floorboards in layers of warmth. You reach out and touch the frame of the loom, feeling the solid, cool wood, and you notice the shuttle resting on the warp threads, a smooth, boat-shaped piece of wood that has traveled back and forth 1,000,000 times. You sit down on the weaver's bench, which is wide and comfortable, worn smooth in the center. You can imagine the rhythmic sound of the loom, the click-clack of the beater, the swish of the shuttle, a hypnotic music of creation that settles the mind. To your right, there is a large wicker basket filled to the brim with unspun wool, clouds of white and gray fleece that look soft enough to sleep on. You reach into the basket, your hands sinking deep into the softness, the lanolin making your skin feel smooth. Your fingers brush against something solid, hidden deep within the fluff of the wool. You move the fleece aside gently, revealing a small wooden box made of cherry wood, its surface inlaid with a pattern of vines. You lift the box out of the basket, the wood light and warm in your hand. You slide the lid open, the movement silent and smooth. Inside, resting on a bed of red velvet, is a silver thimble, tiny and perfect, engraved with a ring of microscopic flowers around the base. This is the treasure of the weaver, a symbol of protection and patience hidden in the softness of the wool. You pick up the thimble, marveling at its weight, rolling it between your thumb and forefinger, feeling the tiny indentations on its surface. You place the thimble back into the box and slide the lid shut, tucking the box back deep into the basket of wool, burying it once again in the white clouds. You lean back on the bench, resting your hands in your lap, and you look at the loom, at the threads stretching out before you, hundreds of them, all waiting, all still. The repetition of the threads is soothing to your eyes, a pattern of order and calm. The candlelight softens, the shadows lengthen, and the silence of the room deepens, wrapping around you like a heavy woolen blanket. You feel the tension melting out of your neck, your back, your legs. The smell of the cedar and the wool is heavy and sweet, lulling you into a state of absolute relaxation. You are just another thread in the great tapestry, held safe, held tight, woven into the quiet night. Your eyes begin to close, the weight of the eyelids too much to resist. You drift away from the cottage, away from the loom, sinking into the softness, into the warmth, into the deep, textureless void of sleep that welcomes you with open arms. The soft comfort of the weaver's cottage fades slowly into the distance, leaving only the faint scent of cedar as a memory, and you find yourself standing on a narrow, winding street paved with smooth gray stones that glisten under the light of a single gas lamp. The air here is crisp and smells of dried earth and peppermint, a sharp and clean scent that clears your mind. You walk towards a shop with a large bay window filled with colored glass bottles that catch the light, turning it into beams of amber, cobalt, and emerald green.
You push open the heavy wooden door, which groans softly on its hinges, and you step into an old apothecary, a sanctuary of healing and silence. The air inside is thick and aromatic, a complex blend of dried sage, lavender, chamomile, and cinnamon, a smell that feels ancient and medicinal, seeping into your lungs and relaxing your chest. The walls are lined from floor to ceiling with hundreds of small wooden drawers, each one labeled with a handwritten tag in fading black ink, bearing names of roots and flowers from long ago. There are shelves filled with glass jars containing dried leaves, powders, and seeds, creating a mosaic of earth tones, browns, greens, and yellows. You walk slowly to the large oak counter at the back of the shop, the wood stained dark by centuries of spilled tinctures and oils. On the counter sits a heavy marble mortar and pestle, resting silent and still. You reach out and run your hand along the cool, smooth stone of the mortar, imagining the rhythmic grinding sound it would make. Grind, 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 a repetitive motion that turns rough leaves into soft powder. You walk behind the counter to a section of shelves that hold the most precious ingredients. You are looking for a specific jar, one that is tucked away in the shadows of the bottom shelf. You kneel down, your movements slow and deliberate, and you find a jar made of thick, frosted glass with a stopper made of cork. You pull the cork, the sound a soft pop in the quiet room, and you tilt the jar gently. Inside, resting on a bed of rose petals, is a small crystal vial, no bigger than your finger, filled with water from a pure mountain spring, sealed with wax. This is the treasure of the apothecary, a captured essence of purity and clarity, hidden among the dried roots. You hold the vial up to the light, watching the water inside, perfectly clear and still, a tiny universe of peace. You place the vial back into the jar, nesting it safely among the rose petals, and replace the cork, sealing the scent and the silence inside. You stand up and walk to an old leather chair in the corner of the shop, the leather cracked and worn, inviting you to rest. You sit down, sinking into the deep seat, feeling the chair support your back and your arms. The smell of the herbs is heavy and intoxicating, a natural sedative that weighs down your eyelids. You watch the dust motes dancing in the shaft of light from the window, moving in slow, lazy circles. The silence of the shop is profound, a heavy, comfortable silence that wraps around you like a heavy woolen blanket. You feel the tension melting out of your neck, your back, your legs. The smell of the cedar and the wool is heavy and sweet, lulling you into a state of absolute relaxation. You are just another thread in the great tapestry, held safe, held tight, woven into the quiet night. Your eyes begin to close, the weight of the eyelids too much to resist. You drift away from the cottage, away from the loom, sinking into the softness, into the warmth, into the deep, textureless void of sleep that welcomes you with open arms.